My mission abroad was never to proselytize but merely to present the teachings of the Buddha to those who are interested. I found numerous such persons. To those who believed in God, I said, if you are convinced of God and if it is beneficial, by all means you may believe in him. But for my part, I told them that I could do better without depending on him. These words of Ven Narada Maha Thero, Ceylon Daily News, December 21, 1966, showed the same spirit, even after 2,500 years after the parinibbana of the Buddha, of the following utterance of the Buddha. Aparanatesam amatasad vrayisodavandopamunkantasadam vihimsa sanipaganim nadasam, damam panatam manajisa brahm, t. Mahipadana sutta, Daiha Nikaya. Open are the doors to the deathless those who have ears repose trust. The Buddha during his 45 years after enlightenment traveled the length and breadth of North India beating the drum of deathlessness Amadidundu Bim, so that intelligent beings could listen to the teaching and become followers of the Buddha by reposing trust in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Ven Narada lived for 85 years. He was born on July 14, 1898 to Kalanispera, father, and Pabilina da Silva, mother, who were living in Cotahiana. It was a Christian environment, but the influence of Anagarkadharmapilla, who was vehemently criticizing the Sinhala people for slavishly giving Christian names to their children, was visible in that the name given to the newborn was Simanipala. He had his secondary education at St. Benedict's College, Cotahiana. His learning ability and his excellent ways drew the attention of the padres, especially Father James, who once had remarked that young Simanipala was most suitable to be a cleric of the Catholic Church. His familiarity with Christian rituals and his deep knowledge of Christianity stood in good stead when he traveled in the West as a Buddhist missionary. The First World War was ending in 1918 and the suffering and carnage a war brings may have influenced young Simanipala who was reaching the age of 18 years. His uncle was at Yaka at Vajiraramaya and this brought Simanipala into contact with the most venerable Palin Vajiragnana Mahanyaka Thera. The Mahanyaka Thera had the ability to spot talent and on his 18th birthday Simanipala was ordained at Vajiraramaya taking the name Narada. 2 years later he gained his higher ordination or Upasampada. Ven Narada could not have had a better teacher to learn the Buddhadhamma than the most venerable Palin Vajiragnana Mahanyaka Thera. As an external student, he studied ethics and philosophy at the University College, Colombo, where he was able to associate closely with Ven Rambukwel Siddhartha Thera, an Oriental scholar monk of repute. At the Vajiraramaya, he also met Dr. Kashyapara, later Ven Kassapa, and together they started the Servants of Buddha Society in 1921. Alec Robertson, who later was a president of this society, wrote as follows to the Narada Felicitation Volume, 1979, as a young and promising monk of only 21 years of age, he, Ven Narada, showed exceptional intellectual prowess matched by an equal degree of spiritual fervor. With the mature guidance and advice of Dr. Kashyapara he mastered the English language and in course of time became an eloquent and convincing speaker who captivated the minds of the English-educated Buddhists with his sermons which were characterized by their clarity and discernment. Ven Narada also had the companionship of that soft-spoken and talented English monk, Ven Mediya, who was residing at the Vajiraramaya. First visit abroad. Ven Narada was 31 years old when he made his first debut in the international world. Due to the untiring effort of Anagarkadharmapilla, the Malagandakuti Vihara at Sarnath, India was completed in 1929 and there was an invitation to the Mahasangha to participate at the opening ceremony. Sri Lanka's delegation, which included Ven Narada, was led by Ven Kaharatanasaranjaka Thera, the head of the Vidyadhya Pirivna. It was fortuitous that it fell on the shoulders of Ven Narada to conduct all proceedings at this historic function. The opening was attended by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru whom Ven Narada met for the first time. Narada's 50 years of missionary work, which ended with his demise on October 20, 1983, he had visited all continents, except the Antarctica. In many of the countries he was the first Theravada Buddhist monk to have set foot in recent times. Due to the work of Oriental Studies societies like the Polytext Society and the Royal Asiatic Societies, the excavations of Buddhist sites by eminent archaeologists like Sir Orlstein and Cunningham, and the missionary work of persons like Anagarika Dharmapilla, there was much interest both in the West and the East to know more of Theravada Buddhism. Ven Narada Maha Thero fitted this bill very well. He had the erudition and the serenity, the gentleness and piety, and above all a perfect command of the English language to put across the most abstruse teachings of the Buddha in a simple, eloquent and persuasive manner. Some of his books like the English translation of the Dhammapada and Buddhism in a Nutshell had been translated to several languages and at times preceded his visits. Because of his publications there was an eagerness to see him in person and, hence, he was able to command the respect of the audience. Furthermore, his compassion was all-pervasive, and because of his vegetarian ways, his special love for children and his amiable demeanor and countenance he was able to reach the hearts of everyone. His most successful missions in Asia were in Indonesia, Nepal, Singapore, and Vietnam. His first visit to Indonesia was in 1934 when he carried a bow sapling from the sacred Bodhi tree in Anuradhapura and planted it in the precincts of the famous Borobudur temple. He is remembered as the first Theravada bhikkhu to have set foot in Indonesia in 1,000 years. During his mission in June 1959 to participate in the Vesak festivities in Borobudur, he ordained to Chinese, to Indonesian and to Balinese persons and established a sema for the conduct of Vinaya acts of monks. When he revisited Borobudur in 1969, which was his fourth visit, he was overjoyed when he saw that the bow sapling planted by him 35 years ago had grown and matured into a huge tree covering a vast area around the Borobudur shrine. It also symbolized the establishment of the Theravada Buddhist tradition in Indonesia. In March 1980 Ven Narada conducted his 12th Dhammapada mission to Indonesia, and a year later he was again in Indonesia to officiate at the Posen festivities. That happened to be his last mission because he passed away soon after his return. Ven Narada Maha Thero considered Vietnam as his second home. In some of his missions he stayed for over 1 year counseling and serving the people. He has undertaken over 17 Dhammapada missions to Vietnam. In 1966, after his 6th mission, he was asked whether he has a special liking for Vietnam, and his reply speaks for himself as a true Buddhist missionary. I regard the whole world as my motherland, all people as my brothers and sisters. I prefer to work in Vietnam because the Vietnamese Buddhists are badly in need of voluntary religious workers to propagate the Buddha's message. He had many successes in Vietnam. At the Jetavana Vihara, in Saigon, the Vesak celebrations were jointly organized by the entire Buddhist community belonging to all sects because of his leadership. In 1969 he opened a Buddhist school with a full curriculum. In 1973 the foundation stone for a Buddhist hall and library was laid. In 1974 for the first time an all-night Purit ceremony was held in Vietnam at the Jetavana Vihara following Sinhala tradition. The Sakyamuni Vihara, situated about 100 miles away from Saigon, was the centerpiece of his missionary work in Vietnam. All the elements of a Sinhala Buddhist temple and the architectural traditions of Sri Lanka were featured. He would not have minded if he were to pass away there. To Nepal he led over 6 Dhammapada missions. The most notable was the mission in 1946, when he led a delegation consisting of Ven Piyadasi, Ven Amitananda of Nepal, who was residing at the Vajrayaramaya, Professor M. D. Ratnajara and Professor M. B. Aryapala to meet with the King of Nepal. His mission was to obtain a royal decree for the return of the Theravada monks who were exiled to India. He was not only successful to get royal pardon but also was able to get the day of Vesak declared a public holiday. Ven Narada Maha Thero was highly respected by the Nepalese royalty, and this helped in the firm establishment of the Theravada Sangha in Nepal. The ties between the Nepalese and the Sahila Sangha have since grown from strength to strength. The Lankaru mine established by the Ven Thero with the assistance of the Sri Lankan Buddhist community along with the Semaphore Ecclesiastical Acts was the first Theravada temple in Singapore. From Vietnam the Ven Thero visited the neighboring countries on Dhammadutta work, missions to Cambodia and Laos, 1959, are recorded. Ven Narada Maha Thero was accorded the title of Sadhu Maha by the Sainaraja and the King of Laos during his visit in recognition of his services to the Sasana in the countries of Indochina. Prior to his mission to Laos, the Ven Thero, who traveled to Rangoon by ship, flew to Peking, now Beijing, China, July 24, 1959, accompanied by Ven Damrayusi, a Chinese monk who was studying in Sri Lanka. He took with him Buddha relics and presented them to Zhao Buchu, the Vice President and General Secretary of the Buddhist Association of China. On the invitation of the President of the Buddhist Society of New South Wales, the Ven Thero visited Sydney in March 1955, as there was no temple at the time. He stayed in the house of Mr. Berkeley, the President of the Society. A few years earlier Mr. Berkeley has met Ven Narada Maha Thero in Colombo and had become a Buddhist. He spent 3 months in Australia engaged in Dhammadutta work. Ven Maha Thero's visit to Africa was in 1947. Before his goodwill mission, a farewell was accorded to him by the Colombo Imba on March 24, 1947. The invitation was from Mr. D. A. S. Nanayaikara of the Tanzania Colony Civil Service as the President of the Dar es Salaam Imba. This goodwill mission, which lasted 40 days, took him to Mombasa, Dar es Salaam, Zanzibar, and Nairobi. Commenting on this mission he said, "During my stay I emphasized the need for Christian neighborliness, Muslim brotherhood, Hindu oneness, and Buddhist matri.